I want to see the live link so they can set the live link so they'll just watch them. Here's the live. This is what people are watching.
We're all set, Your Worship, to start.
All right. All right. Good evening. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our council meeting this evening. I want to certainly take this opportunity to welcome council administration and most importantly, our delegations here this evening. And also for those who are streaming from the comforts of home, welcome. Roll call. Members of council are present. Councilor Tonio will send his regrets. He is not available this evening. All right. All right. Good evening. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our council meeting this evening. I want to okay, I think we're getting a little the recording there. Okay, so first and foremost in the meeting this evening, I have to report out that we did have a closed meeting. An electronic closed session was held earlier this evening at the Personnel Committee meeting at 6 p.m. in accordance with Section 239B of the Municipal Act. And at the meeting, administration was given direction with respect to employment arrangements for identifiable individuals. We did do the land acknowledgement in our earlier meeting at 5 o'clock. And so I'll go right to members of council. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest on the agenda as presented to you this evening? Okay, none identified, so we'll have that duly recorded.
Sorry, Your Worship, we have a councillor with his hand up.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Dowie.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Item 3A, the Court of Revision appointment for the La Chance train. This is one that is related to a project that I'm working on for my employer. And so just out of an abundance of caution, I would like to declare conflict on this item.
Okay, thank you. We'll have that duly recorded. Any members of council, if you find you're in a conflict or pecuniary interest, please at any time during the meeting, please alert the chair and we'll deal with it accordingly. And so with that, if there's no further pecuniary interest declaration, we'll move on to the minutes of the regular council meeting of April 7th, 2022. And if I get a motion to adopt those minutes as presented. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Riquetti. Moves, supported Councilor Jobin. On those minutes, any errors or omissions? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed, if any, those minutes are carried. Thank you. There are no supplementary agenda to deal with, and so now we'll go right into certainly into delegations. And first and foremost, we'll certainly want to welcome all of our guests today. Anita Imperioli, Edward Janice, Linda Lacombe, Jocelyn Adams, and also Tiana, I believe is somewhere yet, Tiana Kavanaugh. Here as our delegation, and it gives myself and certainly council great pleasure to finally recognize some of our outstanding citizens in our community for what they do. And so first, I would like to introduce to the folks the very first award recipient this evening. To Anita Imperioli as the 2021 Dr. Henry Bro Community Excellence Award. This award was created in 2000, and Dr. Henry Bro Award recognizes individuals who have displayed continued dedication, perseverance to a cause and have benefited the citizens of Tecumseh and the general public at large in our region. For 2021, this award is presented to Anita Imperioli. Anita is the founder and president In honor of the ones we love, a charitable organization that was founded in 1997, supporting patients with cancer and other life-threatening illnesses and disabilities in the Windsor-Essex County region. In honor's mission is to create awareness and ensure that patients and their families have access to the best medical treatment and state-of-the-art equipment and expertise when dealing with their diagnosis and treatment. Anita and her team have raised millions of dollars through fundraising initiatives that directly impact the patient experience. Anita is a person of humility, integrity, sincerity, resilience, but most importantly, kindness. Her dedication to her labor of love, her steadfast commitment, and hard work has earned her this well-deserving award. Anita, on behalf of council and the residents of the town of Tecumseh in the Windsor-Essex area, I am pleased to present you with the Dr. Henry Bro Community Excellence Award. Congratulations, Anita. I'll get you to unmute.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the wonderful words. That means so much. Thank you, coming from you especially. I just want to say a special thank you to you, our mayor, Gary, and everyone at council for choosing myself and in honor of the ones we love. We are so honored and proud to be a part of this evening. And I would like to also congratulate all the other candidates. And there's a place for everyone. And if we just do a little bit, we'll make our world different. Thank you so much again.
Very welcome. And again, congratulations on behalf of all of us. We're very fortunate to have, folks like those are being recognized here. Governments can only provide so much, but the lifeblood of any community is the volunteers. It's those who give of themselves to make our community what it is. So we are blessed in the town of Tecumseh to have volunteers that are willing to give so much of their time and efforts to make our place that much better. And so on behalf of council, our citizens, thank you once again and congratulations. And hopefully soon we'll be able to do this in a more formal way and congratulating you. And then also presenting you with your plaque and as well as, again, a picture with Dr. Bro.
Thank you. Thank you again so very much.
Our second award recipient this evening is the 2021 Donnie Massacre Memorial Volunteer Award. And this year, we are extremely pleased to honor Edward Janice on this award for 2021. Ed has salvaged hundreds, thousands of used bicycles and repairs them and sells them to the, and all profits go to the St. Vincent de Paul Society. Over the years, Ed has sold his quality bikes from his home garage on L'Esperance Road, raising over an impressive $180,000 towards the charity. Ed is also active in his parish of St. Anne's Church, where he volunteers as an usher and the Christmas Nativity program. Ed is also very active member of the Knights of Columbus, and he volunteers at various fundraisers. Ed, on behalf of council and the residents of the town of Tecumseh, I am very pleased to present you with the Donnie Massacre Memorial Volunteer Award in recognition of your exemplary service to our community and to all of our residents. On behalf of all of us, again, congratulations, well-deserved, and we're very pleased to present to you this award.
Thank you. I'm off.
Are you on?
No, I'm not on.
Well, they gotta put you on. They gotta.
So go ahead.
I'm not on. Am I on now?
You're on.
Okay, well, I want to thank you and the council for everything you've said there and done. Thank you very much.
All right.
Are you hearing me?
Oh, yeah, loud and clear.
All right. Okay, Gary.
Loud and clear. Thank you very much. And congratulations on behalf of all of us.
Thank you.
Our next recipient, it gives me a great pleasure to introduce to you Linda Lacombe, our 2022 Senior of the Year Award winner. The Ontario Senior of the Year Award gives each municipality in Ontario the opportunity to honor one outstanding local Ontarian who, after the age of 65, has enriched the social, cultural, and civic life of his or her community. This year's Senior of the Year Award is presented to Linda Lacombe. Linda is a very dedicated and instrumental volunteer at McAuliffe Park. Linda has been an organized, hardworking, well-respected member of the McAuliffe Park team for over 40 years. She is a strong supporter of the continued success of their programs that serve our youth and is very passionate about making the community a better place. Linda is a perfect example of a devoted volunteer who works unselfishly for her community, and I am pleased to present her with this award, the Senior of the Year Award. Congratulations, Linda, on everything that you do for us.
Oh, thank you very much to the counselors and to you, Mayor, and to everyone who was involved in designating me as a senior for 2022. I was just going to say my husband Jill and I have enjoyed being living in Tecumseh, Sandwich South at the same residence on Shawnee Road for 52 years, and raising our 4 daughters, Michelle, Nicole, Janine, and Monique. Many may recognize me as Madame Lacombe, who I taught a lot of kids in the Tecumseh area at St. Peter's, St. Pius, and St. Gregory's School. And then others knew me as Linda, coaching t-ball or playing softball on the Women's League in my younger years, and as treasurer of McAuliffe Park. There's always fun activities in Tecumseh. Thank you again, especially to my friend Frank Personati, who nominated me for this award. And it's been quite a journey growing old in Tecumseh. Thank you very, very much. I really was surprised and appreciate this.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. The next 2 recipients are the Youth Award. Our first one is for the year 2021. We'd like to recognize Tiana Kavanaugh, the recipient of the Youth of the Year Award for 2021. Tiana is no stranger to the town, having volunteered with the Corn Fest and the Tecumseh Fire Department. She's an active volunteer collecting donations for the Tecumseh Goodfellows through grocery bagging and their annual holiday newspaper drive. She helped organize the Ultimate Fun Firefighter Challenge in 2014 and 2017. So since grade school, Tiana has volunteered her time with the annual Fire Prevention Week events at Fire Station number 2. Tiana also assists with the June 27th Miracle Food Drive. Tiana is in the Human Kinetics program at the University of Windsor and is a student within their Outstanding Scholars program, which represents the top students in each faculty on campus. She's worked on research projects related to head impacts in youth football. Her drive to understand this subject is consistent with her goal in becoming a physician after her undergraduate degree. I am pleased to present the 2021 Youth of the Year Award to Tiana Kavanaugh. Congratulations to you, Tiana, on a job well done, and thank you for your service to our great community at Tecumseh.
Hi, everyone. Sorry about my environment right now. I had to roll with the punches today, but thank you all so much. I've always been very lucky to have grown up in Tecumseh and following in my dad's footsteps, Kevin, as you all know, been able to take on leadership and volunteer roles in our community. So this award really does mean a lot to me, and I really appreciate it. So thank you guys so much.
Congratulations once again. All right, our final recipient this evening is Jocelyn Adams, a 2022 Youth of the Year Award. The town of Tecumseh established the Youth of the Year Award to annually recognize a person under the age of 23 who has enriched the social, cultural, and civic life of the community that has ultimately benefited the citizens of the town and the general public at large without thought of personal or financial gain. So 2022, the recipient this year of the Youth of the Year is Jocelyn Adams. At just 15 years old, Jocelyn has a long list of achievements. At 4 years old, she organized a garage sale with proceeds going to the Terry Fox Foundation. Her charity garage sale has become an annual event and has raised a total of $35,000 to date. She was honored by the Terry Fox Foundation with a special visit from Terry's brother, Fred Fox, who surprised Jocelyn at school. Jocelyn is also known for volunteering with the annual Tecumseh Terry Fox Run, from putting out road signs to cleaning up after the race, and Jocelyn is always eager to lend a hand. Jocelyn also participates in Taekwondo and has been instrumental in organizing additional fundraising efforts with her Taekwondo family. In 2020, she was awarded the Catholic Student Leadership Award for the Windsor-Essex Catholic District School Board. Jocelyn is also a member of the town's Youth Advisory Committee, and I'm pleased to present to Jocelyn with the 2022 Youth of the Year Award. Congratulations, Jocelyn.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be able to be nominated and win this award, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. In Taekwondo, and I think you can compare notes with our CAO, who's a black belt, by the way. So with that, congratulations once again to all of you, all the award recipients. It is a pleasure and privilege to have a group of passionate and certainly committed individuals in our community. Each of you makes such a meaningful contribution to the town. And on behalf of myself and all members of council, our administration, and all of our citizens in Windsor, Essex, and in particular here in the town of Tecumseh, thank you for all that you do, and continue to do what you do best, and continue to contribute to our wonderful community. We are who we are because of our volunteers in our community. So congratulations. Okay, so that is the end. And at some point in time, I know for many there, we're celebrating our 100th birthday this year. And certainly we hope that we'll be able to see all of you in a more formal way. But certainly COVID has not been kind to us. This way we're doing our this in a hybrid fashion and that, but we certainly want to present to you face to face your well-deserved certificates, and also pictures with the actual plaques where your names will be there forever. So thank you, and you're more than welcome to attend our meeting this evening, but I would understand, and so you're free to leave at your leisure.
Good night.
Good night.
Say thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, members of council, we'll certainly move on, and we're going to deal with K, which is our communications, and we have 11 pieces of communication. If I have motion to receive those. Councillor Dowie and Councillor Altenhoff, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Any communications that members of council would want to acknowledge? I have one, and it's more of a the optics, but I certainly number 5, the town of Gravenhurst, the Russian sanction resolution. I think for us, a show of support for our Ukrainian friends who are suffering dearly, and I would like to see us support the town of Gravenhurst. My good friend Mayor Graydon Smith, and in that resolution. Councillor Houston. Move the resolution.
Yeah, I'm happy to move it. Yep.
Thank you, and support by Councillor Altenhoff. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried unanimous. Thank you. We have no further communications and action required. Committee minutes, there are none to deal with. So we'll go right into reports, members of council. And we have our first report. It's our Community and Recreation Services. I believe Brett Palmer is going to deliver that. And it's a pathway to potential funding agreement for 2022. Our manager, Brett Palmer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and good evening to council. Through you, your worship, tonight the Community Recreation Services Department is pleased to be bringing 3 reports forward to council. The first report is the Pathway to Potential Funding Agreement for 2022. Yearly since 2013, the town has entered into agreement with the City of Windsor for the Pathway to Potential program. The city transfers monthly payment to the town, and the funding is administered by our department to assist low-income families. For 2022, we have been approved for $50,000. It will be allocated between administration fees, universal programming such as free swims and skates, and funding for direct assistance for recreation fees and registration fees for recreation programs such as minor sports, minor soccer, baseball, and swimming programs through our own department. With this funding, we're excited to assist a number of families and hopefully achieve pre-pandemic numbers. It is administration's recommendation that report number CRS 2022-06 Pathway to Potential Agreement 2022 be received, and that the corporation of the town of Tecumseh enter into agreement with the corporation of the City of Windsor for the Pathway to Potential program for the budget year 2022 at no cost to the town. And further, that the bylaw 2022-030 authorizing the mayor and the clerk to execute a service agreement between the corporation of the town of Tecumseh and the corporation of the City of Windsor for the Pathway to Potential program 2022 be adopted.
All right, members of council, any questions or comments? On the motion, Councillor Jobin. Move, support, Councillor Altenhoff. No further questions or comments. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. All right, our next report. Our next, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Our next report is the Optimist Club's Victoria Day weekend fireworks of 2022. So I'll call upon our manager, Mr. Palmer, to summarize the report and recommendation.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Mayor, and through you. The next report is respect to the St. Clair Beach Optimist Club annual Victoria Day weekend fireworks. The Optimist Club again is planning to host a community fireworks display at Optimist Park on Saturday, May 21st, with a rain date of May 22nd on the Sunday. This community favorite event is highly anticipated as it unfortunately has been canceled the previous 2 years due to COVID restrictions. The event comes at a significant cost to the Optimist Club, and therefore the town has assisted in the past by waiving user fees. The club once again has engaged the services of K&H Distribution to handle the fireworks display, and K&H will ensure the proper documentation is received by our fire department. The Optimist Club has met with administration, and discussions have been had with the OPP regarding plans and best practices for maintaining safety for this event. Administration can also confirm that the proposed event is in accordance with the outdoor special event policy. As council may remember, during and directly following the event in 2019, there were some issues associated with aggressive behavior, including physical assault, as well as abusive language and bullying. Due to these events, administration, the club, the Optimist Club, and the OPP met and determined that some additional measures would reduce these concerns. One of these measures was the recommendation of enhanced police presence. And therefore, the recommendation that is being brought forward to council in this report is that the town of Tecumseh pay for the additional enhanced OPP services during this 43rd annual Victoria Day fireworks event to be held on May 21st or May 22nd, 2022 at the estimated cost of $1,500, and that this cost be funded from the police contracts budget.
Questions or comments? Councilor Jobin.
I do appreciate the report and I do support the recommendation. Just a quick comment. I do hope that the community, you know, we've all been in the pandemic situation, locked down, not out and about. I do hope that the community during this event and any and all events going forward, that we are kind to each other. We are being respectful of others and the property and the events, and to recognize that the police will be, there'll be a heightened police presence in addition to other precautions. So let's just be responsible, be kind, and be appreciative of the things that we have, because eventually people aren't going to even want to participate and volunteer in putting these things to you. So these are gifts. Let's appreciate them, let's enjoy them, and come together as a fun, healthy, loving community. So I do approve the recommendation, support it.
All right, moved by Councilor Jobin. Thank you for those comments. And support, do I support? Councilor Altenhoff, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Yes, Deputy Mayor Becchetti.
Thank you, Mayor. Brett, another item, I'm not sure if it was discussed with the OPP, but are we able to keep track if we do have situations where there's individuals that have report aggressive behavior? Let's say there's a fight, that we can ban them for future events. Again, if they're causing trouble, I know at the arenas, if there's boisterous appearance, there's trespass orders given. Are we able to do something like that if need be? There's got to be some kind of penalty, and that's got to be advertised that, you know what, if you don't follow, you know, proper behavior and enjoy the good time, it's a family event. We don't want any, you know, drinking. We don't want any alcohol. We don't want to see any inappropriate behavior, especially on the hill. We want to make sure that it's a safe environment, that we're proactive in that message prior to the event. And whether that comes from the town or the Optimist Club itself, I think it's important that there's going to be that zero tolerance and kind of give them that warning, but also with severe consequence if we're able to do that. But just a suggestion, you know, for consideration.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you, Your Worship, to the Deputy Mayor. Yeah, this is something that I think is a great recommendation. I think that's something we can bring up to the OPP, talk within our department to determine what we have available to us. I also like what you said about potentially doing some type of you know, social media, maybe campaign to just encourage everyone to understand that there's going to be a police presence there, understand kind of exactly what Councilor Jobin also mentioned too, that we're getting back to these post-pandemic times, or hopefully that, and that we need to be kind to each other, and that we need to kind of assure that these events are going to be safe. And it's really up to the individuals, because again, as much as policing as we want to put in place, it's really up to the people to keep order. So that is something we'll bring up, and maybe we can work towards creating some type of campaign for the public.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Been duly moved and supported. All in favor? Was offended? That is carried. Thank you. In your final report, again, I'll call upon the manager, Mr. Palmer, to summarize the report recommendation. The next one is the Taste of Tecumseh.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. The final Community and Recreation Services report being brought forward is regarding the Taste of Tecumseh for the 2022 Taste of Tecumseh Festival. The Taste of Tecumseh Festival event is a licensed event that includes musical entertainment and is hosted by the Optimist Club of St. Clair Beach. This 19 and over event spotlights a number of local restaurants, bars, and wineries, and is scheduled to take place Friday, June 17th and Saturday, June 18th at Lakewood Park from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. each day. This event is a major fundraising initiative for the Optimist Club. The funds raised at the event are used to support community initiatives such as the annual Victoria Day fireworks display, as we just spoke about, the Family Fun of Fair event at McCall Park in September, free recreational skates and swims, as well as contributions towards the recreational funding programs to assist low-income families with recreation fees for sports and recreation programs. Administration has begun a series of meetings with the Optimist Club and representatives from various departments and the appropriate agencies, including the Health Unit, OPP, and AGCO, to review plans for this event. Similar to previous years, the town has set forth an extensive checklist of requirements, of required documents and safety plans that must be met prior to conducting this event. It is determined that the request for this event is in accordance with the outdoor special events policy. As mentioned, the club, the Optimist Club, is requesting permission to set up a licensed area within Lakewood Park. The club is also requesting relief from a noise bylaw for amplified sound and music. Therefore, the official recommendation of this report is that the Optimist Club of St. Clair Beach be authorized to sell and serve alcoholic beverages for consumption by patrons at Lakewood Park from Friday, June 17th, 2022, through and including Saturday, June 18th, 2022, subject to compliance with the provisions of the town's municipal alcohol risk management policy 31 for the purpose of hosting the 2022 Taste of Tecumseh Festival. And that relief be granted from the noise bylaw number 2002-07 as amended in order to permit the Optimist Club of St. Clair Beach to operate loudspeakers or sound amplifying equipment during the 2022 Taste of Tecumseh Festival for the purpose of musical entertainment and event announcements on Friday, June 17th and Saturday, June 18th from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m.
Questions or comments, members of council? Councilor Jobin.
Same type of thing. However, I don't believe this event had any situations around it over its last few events. I just want to thank the Optimist Club for their continued commitment to doing events in the community and to all of their volunteers who work collaboratively and well with the community and businesses within the community that come out and all of their generous support that they provide. So thank you to all of them, and I support this recommendation as well.
Right, thank you, Councilor Jobin. Moved by Councilor Jobin, supported by Councilor Altenhoff. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. All right, we'll move on now to Development Services. I call upon our director, and we're going to be dealing with the bylaw amendment for 1401, 1429 Lesbros Road results of the public meeting and final recommendation. So call upon our director, Mr. Hillman, to bring that report and recommendation. Mr. Hillman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening to everyone. This evening's report is flowing from an application that was filed with the municipality requesting consideration for a change in zoning at the corner of Lesbros and Arbor Street. If we go to attachment 1, please, Sean, in the report. This was an application that was proposing a 3 2.5-story 6-unit dwellings, and you can see it's just on the southwest side of Arbor and Lesbros Road. It's the area outlined in red. 3 lots to have homes. Center one that had been proposed for a sort of light to commercial use some time ago, but it never came to be after the prior use had ceased. So the report summarizes the issues that were raised through the public consultation process. And generally, it's safe to say that there were both some comments in support and some that were in opposition to the proposal. Generally, those in support spoke to the notion of some alternative housing be available in town and general revitalization in the area. Those that were speaking against really spoke to issues around compatibility, site design, density, building height, traffic and parking, stormwater, and property values. A number of concerns were really dealt with that evening at the public meeting, both by administration and by the developer was represented. And so the purpose of this evening's report is to review those. Subsequent to the public meeting, there were a number of meetings between the proponent and some of the property owners to the south and to the west abutting. And what that resulted in was some refinements to the proposal. So Sean, if we could go to attachment 2, please. And these refinements relate to the southerly extension. So there's a red line along the west side of the property for a 6-foot high fence. It would be the extension of the existing 6-foot fence that is along that property all the way to the south limit. And then in addition, a new 5-foot high wood fence along the southerly lot line that would separate the proposal from the home that would remain to the south. The relocation of the southerly buildings, refuse bins, which had been shown on the southwest corner of the building, and relocate those to the north corner of the building. And the addition of a decorative wall to shield the air conditioning units that are on the south side of the most southerly building as well, which was at the abutting owner's request to the south. And finally, some enhanced landscaping and planting of some 23 new trees and a number of ornamental features. And so with that, and although the quality of this image isn't very strong, there was a revised site plan concept that was presented and felt more palatable to the neighbors, and we do agree with the changes that were proposed. So our comments that follow really deal with the 6 issues that were raised, and are in response to the slightly revised proposal that was brought forward. So the first is dealing with compatibility and site design, and the basic position was that this was not compatible with surrounding land uses. And I would remind council that compatible with is not the same as or similar to. What we're speaking to here is something that can exist together in harmony with another use. And we have gone through the exercise of reviewing this both from the perspective of how the use is integrated in the neighborhood. In fact, we've also looked at the St. Anne's Arms, which is just some 200 feet to the north, which is fitting quite nicely to a very similar form of residential development that exists today. And these are the types of urban forms that are very common in urban areas, which is residential of different intensity being amongst one another. And we've want to remind council that to achieve compatibility, we're looking at issues around building orientation, building design, site design, buffering, and appropriate setbacks, and we believe they've all been dealt with in this proposal. We've reviewed the proposal against section 3.18, the land use compatibility section of the official plan, which council will recall has very detailed expectations and requirements. And we came to the conclusion that it does meet the compatibility section and feel that it is a proposal that can deal with the finer details, certainly through the site plan approval process, which will follow if council supports the rezoning. In addition, the second issue raised was with respect to density, that the density was too high. Again, in this case, the official plan establishes that residential lands, which include this subject property and lands in the surrounding area, if it's greater than 50 units per hectare, it's deemed to be high density. The density proposed is 62 units per hectare. The official plan then sets out criteria intended to help make decisions with respect to higher density development. And it includes addressing matters regarding availability of municipal services, on-site parking, protection of adjacent low density residential areas, proximity to commercial areas, location in relation to arterial road, commercial main street, so Les Brunts Road and Tecumseh Road, public transit and parkland. We feel that the proposed development conforms to those criteria. In addition, when considering density, it's to ensure the development is properly integrated with the surrounding area without creating traffic and servicing problems. On both those points, we feel that it's been sufficiently demonstrated that it can meet those criteria. We note that this is within the vicinity, actually on the route of Tecumseh Transit, and is within very easy walking distance to the Tecumseh CIP area just up the road. So from our perspective, we would suggest that the density is supportable at this location. And again, we look to the north and see St. Anne's Arms and find very, I think, identical density, and can see how that type of use can integrate quite nicely and fit in. Building height, building is too high in relation to the area. Again, we would note it's a 2.5-story proposed. Attachment 4, please, Sean, if we could. 2.5 stories are proposed. The maximum height throughout all the residential zones in this area of the municipality is for 10.6 meters or 35 feet. So in fact, these buildings will be lower than what would be otherwise allowed as the maximum building height. And our general conclusion is that it's an appropriate height for this location. Concerns that there will be traffic and parking problems. Again, sufficient parking is being provided that slightly exceeds the minimum that's required by the zoning bylaw for this type of use. In addition, there was a traffic analysis undertaken to demonstrate that the transportation infrastructure in the area will not be adversely affected and will operate adequately. So we, again, feel that those will not be issues of concern. There were issues with respect to this development will cause flooding of abutting properties. Again, through the site plan control process, this development will be subject to stormwater quantity and quality control, and will be designed in a manner that does not adversely affect abutting properties. So we feel that this matter can be adequately addressed. And finally, there were issues with respect to the devaluing of properties in the area. And I think we've spoken to council about this in the past on various applications. Really, there isn't any planning professional evidence to support that type of assertion, and it's really not an accepted independent variable that we use through a professional land use planning analysis. What we do look at is compatibility, good urban design, and proper integration of the proposal into a neighborhood and into a part of the community. And on that front, we do think that this meets the test. So with that being said, we then turned our attention to planning policy analysis, which we have. I will just provide in summary, Mr. Mayor, for council's benefit. We, of course, have to make decisions. Council makes decisions that are consistent with the provincial policy statement. And we find that the provincial policy statement certainly is promoting infill development, compact built form, making efficient use of existing infrastructure, and ensuring that there's a range of housing forms, types, and tenures that are made available. Across the board, we find from our perspective that this development meets the provincial policy and is consistent with it. The county official plan has very similar policies, directing development to our settlement areas and to areas that have full services. This development certainly meets that requirement. And as far as the Tecumseh official plan, I've summarized to some extent the residential policies that it matches, the compatibility policies that we believe it meets. And in addition, there's a section of the plan called amendment procedures, and what it looks at are a number of items, which I will just very quickly summarize, that the matter is consistent with provincial policy, which we think it is, the suitability of the designated land for the proposed use, compatibility is raised as an issue. We think we've spoken to that. Infrastructure is suitable to accommodate it. There was an analysis, Mr. Mayor, to ensure that sanitary sewage was not an issue that was undertaken, and it confirmed that capacity is available. So this development will be on full services, and stormwater will be addressed through the site plan process. And ultimately, there needs to be sufficient transportation infrastructure to support the development, which we believe there is. So with all of that being said, Mr. Mayor and Council, it's our opinion that the zoning bylaw amendment being sought is appropriate for the redevelopment of this site, and that it meets all of the policy criteria. Accordingly, Mr. Mayor, there is a recommendation, which is for Council, if it so chooses, to pass a zoning bylaw amendment for the subject property 1401 to 1429 Les Bronze Road, from residential zone R2 to a residential R225, which is a site-specific zone, setting zoning criteria for this property to facilitate the construction of the residential development consisting of 3 2.5-story 6-unit dwellings with site-specific lot, building, and yard provisions, and that it be adopted. So I'm happy to address any questions, Mr. Mayor, if there are any of council.
All right, thank you very much for the report, Mr. Hillman. Any questions or comments on the report as presented? Go ahead, Councillor Omhoff.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to Mr. Hillman, thank you very much. It seems, if I'm understanding kind of the report correctly, as well as what you've indicated, Mr. Hillman, that there's generally been an agreement reached by kind of the developer and the residents, noting, I think there's 5 bullet points where they've, the developers try to attend to the issues. So I'm assuming that the residents who brought forth some issues before are generally in line with what's been accepted. I'm trying to identify on attachment 2. I know the refuse bins was removed or moved from the southerly side to the north side. I'm trying to see them, if possible, could they be pointed out? I mean, I'm just trying to, just want to make sure they're not interfering, I guess, with that walkway near Arbor as well.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if we could go to attachment 2, Sean, it might even be slightly clearer, or actually attachment 3 will be fine, actually. Please. So the building to the south is the one where there was the modification made. And so you can see where the hand is. If it just goes to the west, there are 3 air conditioning units. Those could not be relocated because of just the mechanics of how the air conditioning units support that half of the building. But there is a wall proposed along the south edge of those air conditioning units to deflect the noise. The bins that had been proposed, you'll see if you just go to the northwest corner of this building, you'll see it looks like
okay, there.
Yeah, for an area that's dedicated for that space in a slight enclosure, and they were previously shown down on the south side of the building.
Okay, understood. And one more obvious question: why a 6-foot fence on one side and 5-foot fence on the other? I mean, if everyone's happy with it, I won't complain. But wouldn't it be consistent to either make it or keep a consistency be better? I'm just asking, I guess, the obvious question from my point of view.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Good question. It would be typical that we stick with a standard. What the bylaw establishes is a maximum height of 6 feet. The discussion that took place was with the property owners to the west, there is an existing 6-foot that was a preferred, that would be our norm. The property owner to the south, there's mixed feelings about fencing and the role that it can play. And for privacy, certainly they create some privacy. There are other elements you could introduce for privacy, whether it be vegetation, landscaping, and so on. And some people like fencing and some don't. They say fencing makes a good neighbor. Over time, it's not the most visually stimulating piece of urban architecture. The neighbor to the south really felt there was a preference for 5 foot. It's almost less, although it provides the screening for the vehicles, it's less inhibiting, if I could say it that way. And the enhanced landscaping and some taller growing trees, I think, will account for some of the visual effects. So I think if the fence were sort of a linear piece and it sort of was going up and down like a sawtooth, that would look a little bit unusual. Where there's a distinct southerly fence and then it hooks into a westerly, I think it will be fine. And I think we take this as one of the compromises that found its way to, making the proposal compatible with the neighbors and palatable, actually. So I think it's a scenario that we can certainly support.
If the neighbors kind of wished it and had some discussions with the developer and the developer agreed, I'm fine, but I just was curious more than anything.
Yeah, good question.
Very much.
Councilor Dowie?
I think, Worship, my questions were asked by Councilor Altman.
All right, thank you. Any further questions or comments? If not, Councilor Deputy Mayor Becchetti, prepared to move the report.
Yes, I'd be happy to approve the recommendation to be adopted as written in the report.
Thank you. Do I support? Councilor Houston, thank you. No further questions or comments. All in favor? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, just a comment. I want to thank the developer on this proposal and again, the residents for coming to a resolution. I think that's what the public process is all about. And this is a good example of everyone with senior administration working together with the developer in their neighborhood there to come up with this diverse housing that's desperately needed in our community. And again, I want to stress that these will be residents. These 18 units will be inviting people, whether it be 1 or 2 per unit, that will be new Tecumseh residents, and they're going to be valued members. They're not going to be transient tenants that are going to be in and out. These are individuals that, just like across the street at St. Anne's Arms, residents that have moved into that complex have stayed, and there's no vacancy there, and it just bodes to the point that people do want to move into our community, and I hope that this development here starts that, and like along the whole Main Street, continuing that development proposal. So thank you to everyone for moving forward, and looking forward to seeing this come to fruition.
Yeah, and I think the other piece, the diversity of housing, we've been saying it for a long time, and I see a transition from single family homes where folks are empty nesters and want to have that next level, and so that frees up single family dwellings within our own municipality too. So this is a win-win-win right across the board. So I certainly echo your comments, Deputy Mayor, and I think thank you to the planning department and putting this report forward. But I think at the end of the day, it accomplishes everything that needed to be done, and with very little hiccup. So I think this is great, and it's again a huge improvement into the corridor, and especially on the CIP and so forth. So kudos to Mr. Smith and others who have come forward and have confidence in putting projects like this into our community. And I think, as he alluded to in the public meeting, it's only for him, it's the beginning. So looking forward to more developments of that nature. So on the motion, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried unanimous. All right, we'll move on to item B of the reports too. And again, we're looking at the manager. I think Mr. Jeffries is going to bring this economic development proposal forward and summarize the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of council. The next two reports from Development Services deal with the request for scheduling of public meetings related to zoning bylaw amendments. So I'll keep my comments short and just introduce the proposals and provide a brief planning context. The first report, if we could go to attachment 1, please. Deals with a 0.9 acre property just east of Les Brunts Road on the north side of Riverside Drive, and you can see it outlined in red here. The property contains a 2,126 square foot dwelling on the north part of the property. In the middle, there's a small shed, and then there's a small accessory detached garage that's the subject of the proposed ARU. That's 665 square feet in area. Attachment 2, please. So this map shows the subject property outlined in red again in the context of the surrounding land uses. You can see that the majority of the surrounding land uses are low density residential in nature. There is a small commercial node across Riverside Drive at the intersection of Les Brunts and Riverside Drive. And then the two green areas represent the Chippewa Park North and the Colonel Paul Poisson Park. Attachment 3. The proposal is to convert that detached garage into a standalone ARU containing a 1-bedroom, a bathroom, a large common area, a great room containing living, dining, and kitchen facilities, and then an entranceway at the north end of the property that would open up into a dedicated parking space, so away from Riverside Drive. This existing detached garage that's proposed to be converted is fully serviced with all the municipal services, including municipal water and sanitary, as well as gas and hydro. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to change the zoning on the property from residential R1 to a site-specific residential R1 zone to permit the standalone area and to establish a specific zone provisions for that ARU. In terms of the planning context, the provincial policy statement, as you've heard me say before, includes a host of supporting policy, such as accommodating affordable housing and needs arising from demographic changes, making efficient use of infrastructure, and encouraging all types of residential intensification, including ARUs. The county official plan permits second dwelling units, but leaves it up to the local official plans to and zoning bylaws to establish detailed policies and zone provisions for those ARUs. The Tecumseh official plan, as you'll see on attachment 4, designates the property residential. You see there in yellow. And it includes under section 4.2.2, item 8, criteria for the establishment of these standalone ARU types. And those criteria include that it's subordinate to the principal use. It can be integrated into the surrounding area. It's compatible with the design and scale and built form on the lot as well as the surrounding area. That there are full municipal services with no constraints. And that issues such as parking, access, stormwater management, tree preservation, and landscaping are adequately addressed. And we feel that all those issues are addressed through the subject proposal. There's also a section in the Tecumseh OP, under 1018 that sets out criteria for considering zoning bylaw amendments, and that's the degree of conformity to the general intent of the plan and the consistency with the provincial policy statement, which we've already addressed. The need for the proposed use, compatibility. This is a form of gentle residential intensification. It's all happening within an existing structure. So we feel it's highly compatible with surrounding area. And the adequacy of the infrastructure and transportation system, which we feel are both met. We've also evaluated the proposal against the draft ARU guidelines, and it meets all of those guidelines. With the exception of the setback from the side lot line, because the existing garage is only 0.3 meters or a foot from the eastern side lot line, but we don't anticipate any issues related to that that close proximity due to the the design of the building. So, Mr. Mayor, the recommendation, I'll recite that, is that the scheduling of a public meeting on May 24th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. in accordance with the Planning Act for an application seeking to amend zoning bylaw 1746 by rezoning a 0.12 hectare parcel of land situated on the north side of Riverside Drive, municipal address 12322 Riverside Drive, approximately 45 meters east of its intersection with Les Fronts Road, in order to permit the conversion of an existing accessory structure into an additional residential unit in accordance with subsection 4.2.2, item 8 of the Tecumseh official plan be authorized. I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Jeffrey. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councilor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship. This is largely more of a comment where we're sort of going back in time with these ARUs. There are many residences or buildings just like this on Riverside Drive proper and in this neighborhood. So what the Chad's comments with respect to compatibility with the existing neighborhood, it's well founded. There are lots of dwellings like this. We don't notice them all the time, but I certainly notice them when I have been out there meeting with the neighborhood. So looking forward to hearing all the concerns at this public meeting. We'll be supporting it in this vote to move to the next stage.
All right, thank you, Councilor Dowie. Any further questions or comments? Yes, Councilor Hughes.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Chad. I'm certainly in support of having this, public meeting and seeing these, ARUs move forward. Will we? And I believe at some point we will be at a point where these renovations or conversions to ARUs won't require public meetings. It'll be something just authorized as a permit. Am I correct on that? And when will that happen, or what has to happen to bring us to that point?
Thank you for that question, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Houston. Yes, we've drafted some guidelines as we've presented in the reports that we brought to council on these ARU proposals. And what we wanted to do was make sure that we could go through a few rezoning processes to get a sense of what issues we'd be dealing with and how to best address them through zoning regulations and provisions. And then we would come forward to council with a housekeeping amendment that would implement provisions in the bylaws that would permit these as of right. So, but we just wanted to have this this testing period to make sure that we've vetted all the issues with council first.
Thank you very much. I'm certainly in favor of testing and making sure we, get all the kinks out and understand, what we're in for right before that housekeeping amendment. So thank you for that information.
All right, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Then a motion that we move forward on the public meeting on May 24th, moved by Councilor Jobin, supported by Councilor Houston. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. And well, item number C is different area, but same, I believe the same, but anyway, I'll call upon our manager of planning services, Mr. Jeffries, again, on local economic development to summarize the report and recommendation on a bylaw amendment condition of consent application, BO 122-6780 Holden Road, and to schedule a public meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we could turn it to attachment 1, please. So this report deals with a property on the east side of Holden Road, approximately 1 kilometer north of County Road 8 at 6780 Holden Road. And this property is the subject of a consent application that was granted provisional consent by the Committee of Adjustment on February 28th of this year. And that decision gave provisional consent to sever a 0.55 hectare surplus dwelling lot and to retain a 20.13 hectare farm parcel. And I think attachment 2 will illustrate the consent that was granted by the committee. And you can see the proposed surplus dwelling lot outlined in red at 0.55 hectares and the retained farm parcel that's outlined in green. One of the conditions of the consent decision was that it be subject to a zoning bylaw amendment to prohibit a dwelling from being constructed on the retained farm parcel. And that's in accordance with the direction provided in the provincial policy statement, the county official plan, and our local official plan. But also to address the oversized residential lot because the Sandwich South zoning bylaw contains a provision that establishes a maximum lot area for residential lots in the agricultural or area zoned agricultural, a maximum area of 0.5 hectares. So this is 0.55 hectares. So it's just marginally above that maximum, and that we recommended that we use the zoning process to address that as well. So the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone that 0.55 hectare non-farm related residential lot from agricultural A to a site-specific agricultural A-37 zone in order to establish a maximum lot area of 0.55 hectares and to rezone the area outlined in green to prohibit a residential dwelling from being constructed upon it. And again, that's all consistent with the direction of the PPS county official plan and the Tecumseh OP. Mr. Mayor, the recommendation is that the scheduling of a public meeting to be held on Tuesday, May 24th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in accordance with the Planning Act for a zoning bylaw amendment application submitted for 20.68 hectare parcel land situated on the east side of Holden Road, approximately 1.1 kilometers north of the intersection with County Road 8, seeking to amend bylaw 8518 by rezoning the 0.55 hectare non-farm residential lot from agricultural A to a site-specific A-37 zone to permit a maximum lot area of 0.5 hectares and rezoning the 20.13 hectare agricultural parcel from agricultural A zone to a site-specific A38 zone to prohibit a residential dwelling from being constructed, all of which is in accordance with condition number 5 of severance application B0122 be authorized. And Mr. Mayor, those are my comments. That's the recommendation that we're making, and I make myself available for any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. Questions? Councilor Jobin.
Yes, thank you through Mr. Mayor, Mr. Jeffries. So I completely understand this application based upon, the hectares and the surplus severance application. But there's an addition to this, is that this landowner, because here's what is happening in my ward quite often in the agricultural community. This landowner does not just own this farmland, nor just this home, because what we're seeing a lot of is the agricultural community, a heritage farmer, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years on the same farm, wants to sever the house and maybe retire somewhere in a smaller home, not a 4-bedroom farmhouse, he can't sever that surplus dwelling unless he has an additional number of agricultural land and or an additional home that he resides in the area. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, that's correct. A number of severance opportunities in the agriculture area were removed through the changes to the provincial policy statement back in 2005. But the one that remained was the surplus dwelling lot severance. And that is for the scenario here where a farmer owns property, agricultural property, and purchases another farm property that contains a dwelling, already has a home farm dwelling, and can then sever that farm property, the surplus dwelling from that farm property that he or she has purchased as surplus to his or her needs. But that is one of the criteria that the committee had to make sure was met before it could grant a surplus dwelling lot.
100%. Yeah, and I completely understand that. But what is hard to understand for the ongoing, long-term farmer who's been doing it for 80 years or their entire life longer, needs to understand that they have to have an additional amount of acreage that they own either within the municipality, or that it can't just be 50 acres and they sever a surplus dwelling. It has to be an additional agricultural lands. They have to prove that they are living off of this agricultural land, and that's it. But what's happening is bigger investors are coming in, buying up just that right amount of land and being able to sever off those houses and maybe farm or not farm the land. And we're killing off our long-term farmers, our old school farmers. We're killing them off when I feel like the act was to keep them. We want to keep you here. We're not going to make this easy for you because we want it to stay into the culture of the agricultural community. But we're making it complicated for them, and I have senior residents here who want to sever a house just like this, but because he doesn't have another 50 acres, he can't do it. But he still wants to farm the land. Anyways, it's just very, it's disappointing that, and this is not you, Chad, I know, because we talk about it all the time, but this is going to come up and there's somebody just on that street who will attend this public meeting. I will support him to go, and other farmers, they're in their 60s, 70s. They want to keep farming the land, but not live in that big farmhouse that's inefficient for them. And they just aren't able to do it. So I'm just letting you know, there's going to be some feedback on this and some heat coming to this public meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? A motion then to schedule a public meeting. Councillor Houston and Councillor Adawi. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Jeffries. Okay, we'll move on to item D. Development Services 2215. That's renewal of municipal housing facility bylaw, Ontario Priorities Housing Initiatives, Tecumseh participation. So I'll call upon our director, Mr. Hillman, to summarize the report and bring forward a recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to be quite brief here because I think we still have one more report to go. This is a follow-up report to Council's support under the rental housing component of the Ontario Priorities Housing Initiative. There's a mouthful that you supported back last year sometime. And with that program, there is a requirement for the town to have it's called a housing bylaw. And it expires every 5 years, so we have to renew it. At the time we brought the report forward in late 2021, we knew that our bylaw was coming up in May, but we were just in discussions with the Windsor Housing and Children's Services Department, which is our designated service manager, to confirm whether or not our bylaw required any updates, changes, revisions. And as council may recall, these programs change. As governments change both federally and provincially, and matters change, they have fine nuances. But ultimately, what we looked at with them was that the bylaw was in fact acceptable in its form. And really what it's trying to do is confirm that if we're in this program, which council has said we would be, and that which makes us candidates for future housing programs that may come out and be funded, that we have an up-to-date bylaw, and that it be done so in accordance with Regulation 603/06 of the Ontario Municipal Act. So it has been checked, and it has to have things like an appropriate definition for affordable housing, policies regarding public eligibility for housing units to be provided as part of municipal capital facilities, and a summary of provisions of what types of terms would be put into a future agreement if we are a successful recipient of one of these programs. So with the finding that the bylaw was in an acceptable form, on this evening's agenda is a bylaw for council to consider, which is bylaw 202232. And the recommendation coming out of this report is that that bylaw be adopted, having the effect of renewing the municipal housing facilities bylaw for the town, which would put us into in accordance with the requirements of the 2021 rental housing component of the Ontario Priorities Housing Initiative. And that we would then find ourselves in a position to, if a program comes our way, we will be properly in compliance. Happy to answer any questions, Mr. Mayor.
The one question I do have, Mr. Hillman, just out of curiosity in that, I know the City of Windsor is the service provider, and Windsor Housing Authority and others. There have been many programs or new programs have been initiated. The Rapid Housing Start, there's been a whole others. And it's been very difficult to land some of those prospective developments in the county. I know Town of Essex was looking at a 22 unit facility that went by the wayside, and I think we need to have maybe a better understanding for me, maybe not for administrative, but for myself. And I'm trying to get even more information because, as we all know, you heard it today in my speech about at Charter Club. The affordability and housing is an extremely important issue facing our community as well as others. And when new programs come, it would be nice if there some capabilities for us to initiate programs and work directly with a developer or a municipality in order for us to to build a lot of these without having all the bureaucracy locally that, oh, that's a provider and so forth. So so with the requirement of the bylaw itself, does it give us an opportunity as well to to be more direct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
I know it's a loaded question, but
yeah.
But I'm just trying to wrap my head around this because it's extremely frustrating when I hear from folks that want to live in our community, can't afford the rent, can't afford to buy the house if there's affordable housing and so forth. We're very limited. I mean, the last programs that were like Rygate and others, that goes back to the 80s and early 90s, right? And nothing's been there. And so I think those are items that I think I find a little frustrating. The improvement of, for example, Arbor Court, which I think is, for me personally, for seniors and disabled, is a bit of a disgrace and need, again, through the service provider and so forth. So,
yep. Well, okay, Mr. Mayor. Well, thank you. Before you said it was a loaded question, I was going to say it's quite actually an interesting and timely question. I think, having heard everything you've just said, this is one of those programs that sometimes they operate out of the realm of our little sphere of interest that we function in, and our own local priorities. But as you've indicated, housing affordability is top of mind for everyone. What I would suggest is what this does is it puts us in a position of being able to very quickly respond to a successful application that's put in through the housing authority, the service manager. I think what would be helpful is probably for us administratively to set up a meeting and have a conversation around how the program's working. Some interest that council has communicated to us through this bylaw coming forward, and how we might take a more proactive approach. For example, Arbor Court as a facility in town that, you know, from our perspective is due for some improvements, and get a better appreciation of how they are going through the process. I know that the county planner sits on the committee, I believe, but we don't have representation. So
So do I.
yeah, okay, well.
That's why I'm frustrated.
That makes it even more interesting. So I think we could do a little bit of follow-up and get some clarity around the operationalization. Here's a tough one of the program, and try and get some clarity on how we could bring some of those matters forward to their attention, and if there's something we need to do even administratively or as a council, and bring that back to you.
And if I could just add before I go to you, Councillor Dowie, is that Jeannie Diamond Francis is our representative on the Housing Advisory, and also we have the Windsor Housing Authority, which Mayor Bondi and Deputy Mayor Leo Meloche said, but the Jeannie is very well versed and understands some of the dynamics, so it'd be kind of maybe an opportunity to have that conversation, and so. And that's been I know that Deputy Mayor Bichetti will attest to it, that though we've had numerous conversations around county council on that issue, how we can improve, you know, more of that housing into our community. Councillor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship, and just really echoing some of your comments. I'm definitely aware of families in town, and certainly my ward, who would give anything to have an increased supply of affordable housing so that they can take care of family members who might need to live there, you know, be their own person, and have their own independence while still gaining the support of their family. Right now in the situation, it seems just, you know, anecdotally that we have far more demand than we have supply for the families who already live in Tecumseh, and it is spreading families apart. And this is the last thing I think we want. We're supposed to be there for one another. So I very much would like to echo those comments that Mayor McNamara had put forward about, you know, can we look forward to find those ways to attract that supply our way from those funding programs and through the housing corporation. But very happy to renew the bylaw and you know, and pursue, you know, new and innovative ideas to bring forward these kinds of opportunities to the town.
Thank you, Councillor Dowie. Councillor Jobin.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. To you know, Brian and I think we've talked about this since the beginning of time, haven't we, Brian? And I mean, everyone has. It's coming to a bigger head now for the need of it, and it comes down to the developer being able to not make a profit in developing something that is affordable, is what it comes down to. You know, it used to be called trailer parks. Now they're called tiny villages. They've changed the name. They've made it a little sexy, whatever. Tiny homes, but it comes down to having a developer wanting to commit to such a project where it just may not be that profitable to them. So if we can find funding to support them, to support the initiative somehow or other, but I support the recommendation as well.
Yeah, and the frustrating part, Councillor Jobin, is that the province has some dollars as well, but the federal government just announced $6 billion for to put affordable housing, and so that's the frustrating part, is how the $6 billion flows to, or some of it flows to the town of Tecumseh. And I think developers are there. I mean, you've seen some interest, like Mr. Valente and his site. He's put 30 of his units through a CMHC program, which is good, and so forth. So we need more abilities to channel those dollars to to be an anchor for a lot of those developers. You're correct. I mean, obviously, nobody wants to build and say, I'm going to lose money and so forth. So we have to have that hook. And so the money's there. The programs are there. It's the accessibility for small rural communities or smaller communities like ours who have to be part of a bigger housing authority. And I hear it from my counterparts in the Western Wardens Caucus are in the same position, where large communities abutting some counties, and the counties are a lot of times left out in some of those programs. So that's where we need to find a way. And I know I've had those conversations with our MP, and hopefully we can have some of those comments with the future MPP, whoever that may be, into the community, in order for us to look at, everybody should be able to access a fair amount of dollars, so that we can have some ability to put affordable housing into the community. I mean, it's pretty difficult for us in terms of going to a developer and say, can you put these up and so forth. There has to be some incentive, let's face it, bottom line. And so let's be fair about it and channel some of those dollars in our area. So I certainly fully support the renewal of the bylaw and then kind of somehow roll up our sleeves and see how we can best achieve those goals. All right. So on the motion, do I have a mover and supporter? Deputy Mayor Buchetti, Councilor Jobin, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you, Mr. Hillman. E, well, we are moving along. Tecumseh Road, Main Street, Community Improvement Plan, CIP review and grant programs. Again, both are Director and Manager of Planning Services. We'll tandem approach. We'll bring, summarize a report and certainly bring a recommendation before us.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Chad and I will just go through this, and it's one of those reports. I recognize the evening is getting late, but it's really quite an important issue, and it couldn't actually be more relevant to the conversation that council was just having. And it's quite a direct relationship. So the community improvement plan for the Tecumseh Road Main Street area, you'll recall, was adopted by council back in 2016, and that's an adoption that takes place under the Planning Act. It gives very, very specialized, unique controls and opportunities to council to facilitate general revitalization. And so this plan was one that covers about 75 acres, approximately 115 properties. And Sean, maybe if we just go to page 2 of the report, it at least gives some context to remind those watching where we're speaking of in terms of our community improvement plan area, because it is actually a delineated area in this instance. So there's 115 properties. You can see Tecumseh Road cuts through the middle. L'Esperance Road goes north and south. It generally goes from the Windsor border to the west down to the point where Tecumseh Road crosses the railway tracks. So that area has been subject to this plan, and really community improvement plans have been around for a long time. They've really transitioned over the last couple of decades into a tool that's very viable for creating development opportunities and revitalization. This plan in particular aspires to recreate Tecumseh's downtown and create a main street along Tecumseh Road in particular, and create an important focal point for the community. And it really encourages the introduction of additional commercial uses on this area, mixed use developments where you have commercial on the main floor, residential above, and really strong residential intensification. And ultimately, it's striving to be a walkable environment. So maybe, Sean, if we just move from that for a minute, just it's easier to, Chad will have an exhibit to put back up, but I think it's easier if we can see each other here. So some of the key objectives, I will just summarize very high order for the community improvement plan. a stronger, more stable economic base, more attractive and welcoming environment. Business retention and growth is a priority. Balancing the relationship between Tecumseh Road as a transportation route and a pedestrian main street. And creating integrated, connected, and accessible corridor for a complete community. The CIP has a vision statement that's included in it, and I will remind council and for those watching, this was developed over a number of years, and there was a very strong community engagement process, quite a fascinating process. And it did come forward with a very concrete vision, and along with some guiding principles. These included to encourage high quality of architecture and design, a vibrant main street, a design that was had pedestrians as a priority, but for all seasons of the year, and accessible to everyone. A diverse mix of uses to draw a broad demographic, both young and old, and all in between, and to encourage a very diverse mix of housing. The CIP also includes some 10 big moves around the walkability, pedestrian friendly, higher density, residential neighborhood, mixed use, and so on. But an important part of the CIP program, in addition to those concepts, is there's two fundamental things that came out of it. One is, how do we improve the public realm, those areas that are in the control and domain of the municipality? Largely in this area, it's the street itself, the road allowances, and some number of parking lots. So there's a process that's underway, as council will recall, in that redesign. But then there's this other thing that, how do you implement the vision? And it's through a private investment, as we were just speaking to earlier. And it's getting people to reinvest in the area that otherwise had not been investing in it for a number of decades, actually. The investment had moved into other areas of the municipality. And that happens through the grant program. That's how there's an incentivization to bring development back and make the area more attractive for development, for economic gains, and for intensification. So Sean, if we go to page 5, please. There's a list there of a grant program. And again, you can only offer this as a municipality if you pass a plan under Section 28 of the Planning Act. And you'll see a full range of programs that are listed there, from planning funds that are available up to a certain amount, planning application fees, development charge grants up to a cap, building facade improvement grants. Council will have seen any number of these coming forward over the last number of years, which we're going to get to in a moment. Residential grant, one that we call the BPIG, the Building and Property Improvement Grant, which is really where we want to head in this report. And that's where there's a consideration for a piece of property that's underdeveloped, has a certain tax rate. After the development takes place, it has a much higher tax rate. And this program offers relief for up to 5 years of that difference between the pre-development and the post-development. It's a very powerful incentive that's available. Parking area improvement grant, sidewalk cafe grant, and then finally, there's a mural and public art grant. So all of these programs have an annual allocation cap in addition to a per property cap. And they total up to $417,000 per calendar year. Sean, if we want to just move maybe back to the normal Zoom platform. And what has been happening over the last 6 years is council generally has been allocating approximately $125,000 on average towards this program. So with us now being 6 years into it, it was timely to take a time to reflect on the program, the successes that we've seen, and to maybe consider some slight modifications to the program. And that's the purpose of this evening's report. We want to look at some of the development that's taken place, the success stories, turn our mind to some of the changes in the circumstances that we're seeing in our community at this time, and actually across Canada to a certain extent around the housing issue, and to suggest to council a slight refinement to the program. So with that, Chad's just going to review some of the grant program uptake and some of the development successes that we've seen to date with the program.
Thank you, Brian. And Mr. Mayor, I'm just going to review a summary of the grants that were issued under those programs, along with the resulting development and investment in the CIP area. So if we could go to the table on page 6 of the report, please. It's at the bottom of that page. You will see that over the 6-year period that the CIP program has been in place, 51 grants have been issued. to 23 different properties. The total amount of committed funding under those grants has been just over $1 million, with the most popular program being the Building Facade and Improvement Grant Program, or the BFIP, followed by the Development Charges Program and the Planning, Design, and Architectural Grants. The least popular program was the Building Rehabilitation Loan, where there was no uptake whatsoever. There's also a separate column on the right that shows the approved deferred taxation over that 5-year period that Brian explained that has been granted under the BPIG, or the Building and Property Improvement Grant Program. The total amount that was granted under that in deferred taxation was $1.67 million, which amounts to roughly $334,000 annually. And just to reiterate what this program does, as Brian had described it just a moment ago, but it's meant to promote substantial development, intensification, or improvement of commercial, institutional, or multi-unit development, and multi-unit is defined as 6 units or more, and mixed-use buildings and properties within the CIP area. And when those properties are reassessed after they're developed, a 100% rebate is given over a 5-year period of the municipal portion of the increased taxation. So 4 properties received that deferred taxation grant, comprising 311 units. And those 311 units, as you're well aware, are currently under construction in the CIP area, and will bring about 500 more people to that area to live, to work, and to shop in that area. If we could go to the table on the next page, please. It will show what it shows here is the total uptake, funding provided, revenues, and the total construction investment. So there have been 41 applications since inception. 51 grants were approved, because some properties applied for more than one grant. Again, the funding committed by the town was just over $1 million. And the BPIG deferred taxes were 1.674. And that resulted in the gross building permit fee revenue generated of $523,000, gross development charge revenue generated of $3.2 million, gross total revenues of, if you add those two together, $3.75 million, and a total construction or investment value of over $77 million. And this development is all illustrated on attachment 1. If we could please go to attachment 1. I think it's a pretty effective illustration of what type of activity we've seen in this area. So there are 23 properties represented here in green, and that's of a total of 115 properties in the CIP area. So almost 20% of the properties have taken advantage of this program, and that's resulted in a residential subdivision totaling 48 dwelling units, 7 new apartment buildings totaling 323 dwelling units, 4,000 square feet of new commercial development, 10 commercial building facade improvements, and 5 new or renovated residential units above existing commercial buildings. And we're still getting more and more interest in these programs, and there'll be some coming before council in the near future. So prior to the CIP being in effect, there was very little development activity. Approximately 26 acres or 31% of the CIP area was vacant or had underutilized land. In April of 2022, so April of this year, that had been reduced to approximately 16.4 acres or 16.9% of the area. So, a lot of land has been developed in the CIP area as a result, we feel, of this program. And the majority of that has been in the form of medium and high density residential development, which is, crucial to the health and success of the community improvement plan area, because it provides that immediate market for the businesses in the area. If we go back to the report, there's a table I want to show council that sort of illustrates how effective this program has been. And it's on page 8 of the report. That's it right there. You see the two bar charts. So this shows the cumulative assessment growth in the period of 2010 to 2015, which was before the inception of the CIP program, against the cumulative assessment growth since the inception. And you can see that the blue bar represents the community improvement planning area, and the orange bar represents the balance of the town. So in the first 5 years, or sorry, the 5 years preceding the implementation of the CIP, there was very little investment in both, but the town-wide investment outpaced the CIP investment. However, since the inception of the CIP area relative to the rest of the town grew, the assessment for that grew relatively higher. So I should note that this chart doesn't include the assessment that will result from the 311 apartment units that are currently under construction. And once those are reassessed and that 5-year period is up, that will result in a dramatic effect in the assessed value and the increased taxation for the area. So there are 2 fundamental success stories that we are happy to report to council tonight. And one is that the CIP has fostered and supported significant development, revitalization, and intensification within the CIP area. And secondly, that it's resulted in considerable increase in the assessment and levy to be collected from the CIP area. And as I noted earlier, that's not the end of it. There are a number of proposals before us that will be coming before council to take advantage of some of these programs. I'll turn it over to Brian now to describe the proposed changes.
And thanks, Chad. Mr. Mayor and Council, I just want to acknowledge Tom Kitsos and his team actually did a considerable amount of analysis to try and, these are simple graphs, but behind it is a lot of information around assessment and so on. So thanks to the Finance Division for helping us out there. So some changing circumstances, always reminding council that these plans are envisioned for in the 20-year realm, realistically. And these are places that are in a period of transition, but we see some positive outcomes. With that being said, we do feel like there are some considerable important things that have changed over the last period of time that we would like to bring to council's attention. One is the adoption of the new official plan. And in that plan, there is a completely different policy regime that establishes how we process development applications in this area. And it's a more refined and clear policy environment that's allowed for higher density residential developments to take place. And we feel that combined with the properties that have gone through successful planning processes, as onerous as they were previously, that they have led the way in terms of demonstrating that you can have high quality, high density development in this area and get them through a planning process. So we think that's a really significant change. And it has the cause of tempering the risk that developers are taking and investing in this area by way of examples of things that are already happening. The second is something that comes right out of the discussion that we were just having on the previous report. And we took some language from the Ontario Housing Affordability Task Force, which just came out a few months ago. And the quote is that housing prices in Ontario have almost tripled in the past 10 years. The word housing crisis is part of our common nomenclature across Canada. And it's really caused us to sit back and reflect a little bit. Windsor, Essex used to be the place where people went in Ontario for affordable housing. We're now right there with all of the regions of Ontario, which are struggling with high housing costs. And it's made us think about the idea of is we call it the BPIG program, the incremental tax deferral grant back. Is that the program that should be targeting for profit market housing at this time? And is there perhaps with the affordability crisis, a better use of that program to fundamentally incentivize affordable housing? And it's one of the few tools available to council for that use for a specified period of time. And the third issue really is that we think that this area is starting to become a preferred place to invest. A preferred place to live over time. And, I think the test will be in the pudding a little bit because as Chad referred to, there are still 4 buildings that are just underway and not occupied yet. But with them come hundreds of people and footprints all over that area. So we think it's an area where even on the commercial side, we're seeing investments that we hadn't anticipated. So it's a place to invest and it's building its own capacity for integrity around and comfort in investing. So with all of that being said, one of the we think it's time for the BPIG program to maybe be revised slightly. So what we're proposing for medium and high density market, in particular housing, although it's played an important role in attracting, we think, the housing that we've seen to date, that with the changing circumstances, we recommend that effective immediately that we discontinue support of the current BPIG program, and that administration report back with a revised program that establishes criteria for the purpose of providing BPIG funding to residential developments that meet specific criteria over a specified period of time for affordable housing that can accommodate affordable housing. And that we bring a report back for council's consideration and future adoption. Having said that, we really would like to emphasize, I think if you, and I know you do, travel the route, there is still more investment to be achieved in the area. We do feel like the other grant programs still have a purpose, and that we recommend that they continue to be available within the thresholds and the criteria that are established to date. So, Mr. Mayor and Council, with that, there is a recommendation to receive the report. There's a recommendation to discontinue support for the current BPIG program for those applications received after today's date. And further, that we be directed to report back with a revised BPIG program to establish criteria for residential developments that meet specific affordability criteria over a specified period of time. And happy, Chad and I, to answer any questions or address any issues that council might have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you for certainly the report itself. So I'll open it up to members of council if there's any certainly questions or comments, and I'll certainly, I've got some, but I'll pass it to council first. And so, Councilor Dowie.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Brian. So thank you for the report. I think you've made a pretty compelling case here, and it really only affects the one sector. I mean, it's a big one, and we certainly wanted to encourage residential intensification. And it looks like the program has been successful. And I understand the targeting, because ultimately that is really given our day and age, that's what we lack supply, and that's what we want to encourage. But I guess my thought on this is the immediate suspension of it versus a gradual phase out. I'm wondering if you might be able to maybe give a bit of rationale for that. Why tonight's the night, and not, say, give another 3 months or so for people who might be considering a proposal to wrap it up and get it in. Or is it possible that no one out there is interested in developing new residential at this time?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, there's a number of components to that. I think one is that we truly do see that the housing market has the financial conditions exist where affordable housing can be built without incentivization and be profitable. And the prices that we're seeing either for ownership or rental can accommodate it. And based on the inquiries we're receiving, this is still an area where people are looking to invest. So we balance that against wise use of public funds. The municipality has gone through a budget exercise late in 2021 for this year, and it continues to go through. We're going through a process of rationalizing significant capital expenditures over the next 0 to 5 years, and we're very aware that there are pressures being received that we are managing, and I think a phase out, we're not convinced brings value to the situation. We think that there is adequate desire out there based on the inquiries that we are receiving for market value housing, and they will not be adversely affected by this program ending. And at the same time, we think looking at the responsible management of the town's own needs to wisely spend the funds that are collected through the tax process, the levy, really would benefit from the gains that we would receive through these future investments and current ones that will come forward. The nice thing about a clear delineation is that there's no questions asked. Anyone who had their application in before, whatever council decides, it's clear. When you move to the other side of the fence, it's clear that there's a new program on the horizon and coming forward. And I would add, just maybe to bring some level of comfort to council, when this program came forward, the CIP and the grant program, we had a lot of discussions with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs London office, and they are really supportive with these types of programs. Of course, it's bleeding from, it's coming from a municipal legislation, provincial legislation. You will see, if you read through the CIP, constant words around at council's determination, at the will of council. These plans and programs are meant to give council great ability to provide grants, but also instantaneous benefit to remove them. And that's for good reason, because when circumstances change, we want to make sure council's in a position to react accordingly. This one, I think, required a little bit of the nuance of, let's look at our circumstance and let's make a clear, clean cut from the program. And I think it just, benefits everybody to do that. So that was some of the thinking behind us coming to that conclusion for this evening. And I think, if we had been having this conversation a year ago before we were using the words housing crisis, it may have been slightly different. We may have looked at a scale down. I think, though, that circumstances have changed so considerably that it warrants this type of a move. That was our thinking.
Thank you.
Yeah, what I think it is time. I've had that conversation before, and I do believe. I mean, there's a pent up demand for housing, and what I find with the grant in particular has really pushed rental versus the condominium. If you were to look at a condominium development and over 100 units, for example, we're talking $100 a unit. That's basically it. And so I don't think, and I agree with your comments, Mr. Hillman, it's not going to affect us dramatically, and especially on the other market. What I do like in terms of if we're going to put an incentive, and I think that this is a great segue going from our previous conversation to what we're doing now, is giving that opportunity. And to the point that Councilor Jobin brought forward, you got to give them and developers kind of an incentive to build that type of housing within the community. But the piece that really I think I find intriguing more than anything, it's adding diversity of affordable with regular market value through one area. And I go back to a time where some members of council, I know Councilor Bichetti was there at the particular time, and led by yourself, Mr. Hillman, when we went to the United States, to Michigan and Cherry Hill, where we saw a diversity of housing from the highest end to the most affordable, and it was all blended within that whole neighborhood with commercial nodes and so forth. This is what I see, obviously, some potential in that particular corridor and so forth. So I agree. The facade improvements, all of that, landscaping improvements, parking lot improvements, all of those I think are critical pieces that are still incentives there for folks to to spruce up and they're certain their areas. But I think what we've given the commercial folks now 400 people that are going to be, or 500 people or better, that could be even 600 that are moving that area. And I know just recently having a conversation with the new owner, or the owner of the new Bourbon, and he is absolutely ecstatic with the EV plant coming and all of these buildings that are within walking distance of his business. And he said it very clearly. That's one of the reasons why I'm here, is because everything's at my doorstep. So I think what we tried to accomplish in 2015 till now is good. It's better than good. It's excellent. It really, almost $78 million of new construction. That is good news. And so, and now we're in a building boom, and in particular, what's been happening. So if you put in context a developer, yeah, they'll take every penny you can give them. But when you break it down to, to a condo, for example, 100-unit condo, for example, it's $100. And so will that make and break, a decision? I don't think so, and so forth. So I think your report is very timely, and knowing, now that we've got something else coming in, we're not abandoning the ship by no means, but we're given some creativity. And I think we have a responsibility to some of our citizens, and in particular some of the younger ones in our communities, to find ways of putting affordability into housing. And I think we talk the talk in the region, but now we got to walk the walk. And I think we've got to give that sense of comfort that we are going to do everything that we can, and try to extrapolate every program that we can get from the upper levels of government. I think that's where the subsidy should be coming as well, to help support our initiative. Councillor, I think it's someone, Councillor Houston.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did have my hand up. You pretty much covered everything that I was going to mention, but
sorry about that.
Yeah, that is okay. I will say thank you to Brian for the report. All of the information to Tom and his team for the financials, and I really found the graph or the appendix, right? Just showcasing what the CIP has delivered up to date. And I really think we're at a point now where the ball is rolling, the steam is behind it, right? And I look forward to seeing the report come back of the revisions to the BPIG program and how we can entice that specific housing moving forward. So thank you.
Yeah, and if I could, Mr. Mayor, I have to acknowledge this. So these reports, it's other people are doing them quite often.
We know.
Well, I figured that, but Chad did some heavy lifting on this one, and we're balancing a lot of priorities. So, and in fairness, the CAO has been pushing us on this one for a while because we knew this was an issue of significant importance. But yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge Enrico DeCecco in the department and Chad put in a lot of time on this, and Tom's finance people as well. So appreciate the comments, and thank you.
Team Tecumseh. So any further questions or comments? So there is the recommendation that council received the report entitled Tecumseh Road Main Street Community Improvement Plan, CIP. Summary of committed grant program funds and private development since CIP adoption, and that council discontinue support of the current Tecumseh Road Main Street CIP Building and Property Improvement Grant, or the BPIG program for grant application received after April 26, 2022, and further that administration be directed to report back with a revised BPIG program that establishes criteria for the purpose of providing PPIG grants to those residential development proposals that meet specific affordability criteria over a specified period of time. Moved by Deputy Mayor McKetty and supported by Councillor Altenhoff. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you both Brian and Chad, certainly on this report, and to all of the undercurrents that were part of preparing it. Okay, we'll move on to legislative and clerk services. We have the quarter revision appointment, LaChanze Drain. So we call upon a director to summarize the report and recommendation. And there is a motion to appoint and receive the report. All right.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. So this evening, this report is in regards to a request that the City of Windsor received from Point East Windsor to repair and improve the LaChance drain. City Council accepted the request under Section 78 of the Drainage Act and did appoint Dillon Consulting to prepare a drainage report. The proposed works involve realigning a portion of the existing drain, LaChance drain, to accommodate proposed development. A drainage report has now been prepared by Dillon and has noted that the City of Windsor and the town of Tecumseh residents are affected by these proposed drainage works. The City of Windsor considered the drainage report at a meeting last evening and will now be appointing or determining a date for the holding of a court of revision. The date of that court of revision has yet to be determined, but the purpose of the court of revision is set out in Section 52 of the Drainage Act, which is described in more detail in this report. And that the Drainage Act also requires that where there are lands assessed for drainage works that extend from the city into the town must appoint one member to the court of revision to hear and rule on any of those appeals. And the member must be a person who's eligible to be an elected member of council or a member of council. In the past, council has appointed the ward representative to courts of revisions where the municipality is affected by drainage works in another municipality. In this case, Councillor Houston would be the ward representative. So the recommendation is that council give consideration to appointing a representative to the court of revision for the City of Windsor respecting any appeals on the drainage report for the drain alignment of the LaChance drain, and that this report be received.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. So there's a recommendation. Could I have a motion on the recommendation? Are any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. I guess through you to Councillor Houston, would you be willing to accept that role?
Yes.
Then I'd be happy to, I guess, move that with Councillor Houston being the representative.
All right, thank you, Councillor Altenhoff. And do I have support? Councillor Houston, thank you. On the report, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. All right, move on to the National Accessibility Week. So again, I'll call upon Ms. Moy, summarize the report and recommendation.
Thank you again, Your Worship. So National Accessibility Week is an opportunity to celebrate the valuable contributions of Canadians with disabilities and to recognize the efforts of individuals, communities, and workplaces that are actively working to remove barriers to accessibility. And National Accessibility Week was actually founded by and inspired by the Rick Hansen's Man in Motion tour. This year, National Accessibility Week will be celebrated from May 29th to June 4th. Our own Accessibility Advisory Committee has expressed a real keen interest and desire to celebrate National Accessibility Week in the town. And to that end, they are hoping to develop a number of social media posts and campaigns to help raise awareness for National Accessibility Week and the need for accessibility and inclusion. Additionally, in partnership with the County of Essex and County of Essex being the lead, there's been a design for a regional accessibility flag. And there is a desire by the committee to acquire one of those flags to be hung at the town hall and to participate in an unveiling. Additionally, Red Shirt Day is a day of action for accessibility and inclusion, and it's a day when people across Canada come together and wear red in schools and workplaces to create a visible display of solidarity. And Red Shirt Day will this year take place on Wednesday, June 1st, and we're looking to encourage staff participation in this day as well. So this report is provided for council's information and will also be presented to at the Accessibility Committee meeting being held this coming April 28th.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the motion to receive the report as presented. If I could have a motion, Councillor Houston move and supported by Councillor Jobin. Thank you. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. Move on to Public Works and Engineering. We have a requirement for appointment of engineer for the Cunningham drain. So I'll call upon a director to summarize the report and bring the recommendation forward.
Thank you, Your Worship. The recommendations contained within this report, it's recommended that Dillon Consulting be appointed drainage engineer to make an examination of the Cunningham drainage area as submitted by the landowner and the notice of request for drainage improvement. And that a drainage report be prepared in accordance with Section 78 of the Drainage Act, including provisions for future maintenance. So the request for the improvement initiates the process under the current bylaw to provide a new access culvert or the enclosure over the drain. Dillon Consulting is currently completing a Section 78 report for the repair and improvement to the Pike Creek, which is the outlet to the Cunningham drain. So they are familiar with this area and have the ability to undertake the work in an efficient and timely manner. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you, Mr. Bartnick. Any questions or comments on the report? Hearing none, then a motion to appoint the engineer. Councilor Jobin, thank you, moves, and support Councilor Altenhoff. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. All right, Public Works, drinking water quality management system or operations plan revision date, April 26, 2022. So I think I'll call upon our manager of water, Mr. Dupuy, to summarize the report and bring a recommendation. Mr. Dupuy.
Good evening, and through your worship, it is recommended that the Tecumseh Town Council endorse and commit to the Town of Tecumseh Distribution System Drinking Water Quality Management System Operational Plan Revision Date, April 26, 2022. Since 2008, the town's DWQMS operational plan has been endorsed and committed to by Council of the Town of Tecumseh. As legislatively required by the province, Town of Tecumseh Water Services is required to review, update, and maintain its DWQMS operational plan on an annual basis. Changes and updates can be triggered by staff suggestions, changes in administrative or work processes, internal audits, external audits, Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks inspections, and regulatory updates. Reviewing, updating, and maintaining the DWQMS operational plan is an important part of the continuous improvement process. In order for the owner to continue to show support of its drinking water system and DWQMS, it is required that endorsement of and commitment to the updated operational plan are provided. An executive summary pertaining to the updated DWQMS operational plan is provided in attachment 1. Updates to the operational plan were due in part of the following: legislative and regulatory changes, risk assessment review, management review committee recommendations, which comprises of the CAO, the director of PWES, the manager of water, and the DWQMS rep. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dupuy. I see we have Nicole here as well. All right, any questions or comments? No comments. Well, you're off scot-free, Mr. Dupuy and Nicole. So with that, then a motion that we endorse and the report as presented. Councilor Jobin, Deputy Mayor Bichetti. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the next report. It's also Public Works, request to consider drainage petition and appointment of engineer for the Shield Street. We'll call upon our director. Once again, Mr. Bartnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. The recommendations contained within this report, it is recommended that the petition for drainage works for Shield Street dated March 3rd, as submitted by the road authority, in this case Tecumseh, in accordance with Section 4.1 of the Drainage Act to be received, and that Dillon Consulting Limited be appointed drainage engineer in accordance with Section 8.1 of the Drainage Act to make an examination of the area requiring drainage and to prepare a preliminary report in accordance with Section 10(1) of the Drainage Act. So drainage for Shield Street and the adjacent lands, including Tecumseh Vista School, is currently provided by a private stormwater pump station that discharges into a private ditch and drains northerly and ultimately outlets into the Desjardins drain. The town does not have control over the operation and maintenance of the private drainage system, and during recent rain events, public work operators have attended the site and found water ponding on Shield Street as a result of the pump not operating properly. We've had a number of preliminary discussions with the owner of the pump as well as the school board for Tecumseh Vista, and have come up with a solution moving forward with how to address the situation. And we feel that it is best that the drainage system be designated as a municipal drainage infrastructure that would be under the maintenance and operation of the town's drainage superintendent. Dillon Consulting is currently completing a Section 78 report for the repair and improvement to the Desjardins drain, and has the ability to undertake the work in an efficient and timely manner. And I do want to note that unlike some of the other drainage appointments, that we will be proceeding first with a preliminary report. So it's kind of a higher level report identifying the area that requires drainage, which in this case is Shield Street and Tecumseh Vista, as well as what those possible costs would be. We would then report back to council and engage with the affected landowners, in this case, the town, Tecumseh Vista, as well as the owner of the pump, and get a better sense of what would be required to move forward with designating this infrastructure under the Municipal Drainage Act. So there is kind of this interim process with the preliminary drainage report, but we thought with the discussions we held to date that it was probably the best suited approach to the situation.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, then let's need a mover and seconder to approve. Councilor Dowie. And moved by Councilor Dowie, supported by Councilor Houston. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. All right, move on to D, the asphalt paving tender award.
Thank you, Your Worship, and maybe just ask Sean to see if he can pull up. We did prepare a map just depicting the locations of the asphalt plan for 2022. So it is there on the screen. So the recommendations in the report is that the low tender from Coco Paving Incorporated in the amount of $999,750 plus HST for the 2022 asphalt paving tender be approved, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into a contract for these services with Coco Paving Incorporated. So there were two tender submissions received on April 14th from Coco Paving Incorporated and Millan Corporation. The low tender came in under budget by just shy of $85,000, and the works are scheduled to commence in May or June of this year. And I did want to also add that we were very pleasantly surprised with the tender results. We have heard from other municipalities of increased pricing, especially with asphalt. And to have this tender come in under budget was a great surprise to us. And we look forward to some of the other tenders coming in on or under budget as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bartnick. Any questions or certainly comments? Deputy Mayor Bichetti.
Yeah, I'm prepared to move the report, and then I have a question for administration if I get a support.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor, and Councilor Houston, support. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Phil, just a question regarding, I know these asphalt programs are technical in nature and whatnot, and I know the ward in previous years, we've had issues on Highway 3 with buckling, and I know concrete versus asphalt, but in terms of the actual asphalt itself, and you being in the know, the quality of the asphalt that right now it shows we got the lowest tender, 997,000. Are they using, are there different standards, quality of asphalt that people use? Is there a standard? Is there a higher price if you put in the tender to get one, for example, one that lasts, 15 years versus one that lasts 5 years? Are we getting intersection that lasts only 5 years because the way it's built? That's kind of the question I have in terms of when we do these. Is there a standard thing, or does administration, do you guys know that, look, this is what they're guaranteeing, and this is the actual quality and standard of the asphalt, that the paving that we're receiving?
Thank you, through your worship, to Deputy Mayor Bichetti. So there are a number of different mixes of asphalt used in different situations, whether it's base asphalt surface. It's also asphalt called super pave, which is for the higher trafficked areas or highways or freeways. I think it's a combination of the quality of the asphalt that you're getting, the quality control that you have out on site, the depth of the mill and pave, right? So we do have some areas where we're milling and paving 2 inches. There's some areas where we go a little bit deeper and do the 4-inch lifts. Sub base and the stone base under the road and drainage play a large part in that as well, about the longevity of the asphalt. And we also are very mindful of other infrastructure projects that are underway, whether it's future storm sewers or sanitary sewers. So there may be future plans for other infrastructure projects under the road. And I think we're very mindful of that and looking at, are we doing the 2-inch lift versus a 4-inch? What could get us to that next, 5 or 6 or 8 years down the road before there is a full road reconstruction or before there is other works that take place. So, it's kind of a combination of all of those issues that are kind of reviewed and kind of go into the program.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Hearing none, then a motion on the tenders. Moved by Councilor Houston, supported by Councilor Jobin. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. Next is another report, again, a tar and chip tender award and a motion to approve, but I'll certainly turn this over to Mr. Bartnick and bring that report forward.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report, it is recommended that the sole tender from Shepley Road Maintenance Limited in the amount of $209,690 plus HST for the 2022 tar and chip tender be approved. There was only one tender submission received on April 14th from Shepley Road Maintenance. The sole tender came in over budget by about just over $13,000. The tender does include a provisional item for an additional aggregate stone for $7,000. And administration will take every effort to complete the works within the approved budget allocation. The streets within the 2022 tar and chip program include the 8th concession, the 11th concession, and the 12th concession between South Talbot Road and County Road 8. And this mainly consists of edge repairs and shouldering work. It also includes roughly about $100,000 for crack sealing as well on various roads throughout the municipality. Shepley Road Maintenance has been awarded the tar and chip tender by the town since 2012, and the works have been completed in a professional and timely manner. Works are scheduled to commence in June or July of this year. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Barnett. Any questions or comments? I'm hearing none. A motion on the tar and chip tender. Moved by Deputy Mayor Bichetti, Councilor Altenhoff, support on the motion. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. All right, move on to bylaws, Madam Clerk.
Your worship. So this evening we have bylaw number 2022-028, being a bylaw to adopt the BIA tax levy. We also have bylaw number 2022-029, being a bylaw to provisionally adopt the drainage report for the Lachance Drain, Lachance Bridge, as previously heard at the public meeting earlier this evening. We have bylaw number 2022-030, which is the bylaw to approve the Pathway to Potential agreement, as previously reported on this evening. And we also have bylaw 2022-031, being a bylaw to adopt the tax rate for 2022 for the town, as well as bylaw 2022-032, being a bylaw to adopt the municipal housing facilities bylaw, as also previously reported on this evening. And we also have bylaw number 2022-33, being the zoning bylaw amendment for 1401-1429 West France Road, as well as bylaw number 2022-034 for the official plan amendment at 1613 Les France Road, as well as bylaw 2022-035, being the zoning bylaw amendment for 1613 Les France Road. We're respectfully asking for first and second readings of these bylaws and third and final reading of all but bylaw number 29, which is the provisional bylaw for the Lachance Drain.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. On two readings, can I have a motion? Deputy Mayor Buchetti and Councillor Houston move two readings. Any questions or comments on those bylaws? Go ahead, Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you to administration, I'm just kind of curious, the 2022-35 on the home hardware. I'm sorry, I thought we were expecting something, another report to come to council. Is this?
Mr. Mayor? Yes.
Please.
Yes, thank you for that question. In fact, another councillor had asked us the same. So you'll recall, perhaps after I indicate this, so when the report came forward for the public meeting, it indicated at the end of it, it summarized the issues. It summarized the purpose of the meeting. And it indicated that if there were issues that were brought forward at the public meeting that weren't adequately addressed at the public meeting, that a follow-up report would happen. In the absence of that being the case, the report indicated that the amending documents would come forward to council for their consideration. So that's something we've been doing now for some time. And really the intent is just to create some efficiencies in the process and, just to avoid some redundancies. So we'll try and be clearer on that when we are speaking to that issue at public meetings so that council's aware of that being the case.
Thank you. So just to clarify, then there was no concerns, then everything went smoothly. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Councillor Altenhoff. No further questions on the two readings. All in favor? Oh, sorry.
No problem, Mayor. Through you, I was just going to mention on to Councillor Altenhoff's mention of the home hardware. I have not had anybody reach out to me, really voice any concerns, and we all know how needed that additional access at the home hardware is. So I'm in full support of that amendment and look forward to seeing that full access be put into place.
All right, thank you, Councillor Houston. On the two readings, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And third and final reading on all but the Lachance drain. Okay, moved by Councillor Altenhoff, supported Councillor Houston. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Unfinished business. Any new business? I have one item. Is Mr. Bartnick still on? Mr. Bartnick, speaking of tar repair of roads, is there an ability? I sprained my ankle in our own parking lot. There's a large crack. We need a little bit of repair in our own parking lot here at Town Hall, especially at the back. So maybe somebody from Public Works can have a look at that. Thank you. That's it for me. Okay, no further new business, then I need a motion to confirm the proceedings of our meeting this evening. Councillor Alton Hoff, thank you. Supported by Councillor Houston. All in favor? Opposed, if any of that is carried, thank you. Any notices of motion? None. Then our next meeting, members of council, will be Thursday, May 5th, 2022, 4:30, special council meeting, strategic priorities. And then Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, 4:30, a special council meeting, clerk service delivery review, and at 7 p.m., a regular council meeting. So with that, members of council, adjournment is then in order. Councillor Alton Hoff moves, Councillor Houston support. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you, members of council, for your indulgence and also administration. And thank you to certainly our viewing audience that are streaming from home. And also, again, congratulations to all of our award winners this evening. And until we meet again, stay safe, and we'll see everybody on May 5th.